The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
John Mazzino is explaining two absences from Tuesday night's team sheet, Regan Poole and Connor Shaughnessy, saying, "Shocks was just feeling sore after the weekend, so it was one we weren't going to risk. He will be fine for Monday too. There was no point. We could have rolled him out, but with the way he was feeling after the Blackburn game, having played 23 minutes and the injury issues he's had, we want to protect him. He probably can't play 3 games in a week for the rest of the season, but he will be fine for Derby. I thought he performed well. Regan was ruled out with the ankle injury, so Jojo has been the centre half on the right-hand side."
John Mazzino talking about those surprise team selections. They weren't really selections, they were forced on him by injury, as has been the case so often this season. Almost even the first game of the season, the team selection was determined by the number of players who were receiving medical attention at the training ground rather than training. So we saw we saw one face that we wouldn't have recognised if he'd walked into the bar and stood next to you trying to order a pint of Pernod. And that is the Senegalese, Dio, who is only just acclimatising himself in this country. And it would have been a shock to the system, I think, of every Pompey fan to see what a lineup we were going to be enjoying. No number 10, instead Brown, kind of a number 10, but certainly doing some defending, but also trying to get up there alongside Colby Bishop to double our firepower in the front line. And that's what he did when he scored his goal. He was where Colby Bishop might have been. Colby Bishop was, I think, near post, and it was Brown who got in behind him, unmarked. So that worked. We got a goal out of it. So credit to all concerned for that decision. However, it left us without a designated number 10, and that had ramifications as well because we were largely outnumbered and outplayed in midfield. One last thing is this. I just want to point out, I'm sure you've noticed this, now that we have kickoffs at various different times besides 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, which is becoming a rare event in itself, we now get the team sheets published not an hour or maybe 58 minutes it used to be. 58 minutes, 2 minutes past 2, your phone would eventually tell you how many changes. Now we seem to be getting the team sheets published an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes in advance of the kickoff. Don't know whether this is a conscious decision by Pompey's media department. It's kind of welcome, except it can catch you unawares. You'll leave it until exactly an hour before kickoff, before you check your phone, only to discover that the team sheet was published 10 or 15 minutes before. And you want that publication. You want to see those names as soon as possible. And sometimes Pompey's publication of the team sheet can be not for the faint-hearted. And I would say that team sheet against Swansea, particularly with that young man at centre half, it was a bit of a jaw dropper. I'm not saying it was a heart stopper, but it was a jaw dropper. And interesting, but for some, a little unnerving.
Yeah, really disappointed with the result. I think performance-wise, it's chalk and cheese in between the two halves. I thought we were really, really poor in the first half and got exactly what we deserved. Going in at 2 goals down, the second half was much improved, which is positive but frustrating in a way because I think there's no reason why we can't do that in the first half. So, very, very disappointing night overall. Yeah, whenever you concede goals, you're always going to say they're avoidable. Very, very few goals in football. You walk away and say, there's nothing we can do about that. We just didn't defend well enough on the first goal. We lost first contact on the second goal, and the ball ends up in the back of the net. The 2 goals were both good finishes from the edge of the box, but I thought it felt like it was coming anyway in terms of the performance. So it's difficult to know what to put the performance down to. But my overall assessment, we have to look at the performance tonight and the 90 minutes tonight, but over the past 12 games, I think if we'd have taken more points and if we'd have been more ruthless in the games we've played really well tonight, just becomes a one-off and you put it down to maybe a bit of fatigue. You just go, okay, it's one of those, we haven't played that poorly for a long time. It doesn't become a problem if we do what we should have done at Blackburn on Saturday, against Hull, against Sheffield United, and even Preston to a certain extent.
Sure.
that we needed to do better in possession and out of possession. I thought that we were on the back foot too much out of possession. We were losing a lot of battles. We lost first contact, second contacts. Like I said, for the second goal, we just from a long ball. But ironically, for how good Swansea are in terms of the way they play, both goals came from those longer balls. On the second goal, we lost that first contact, and we don't recover from that. So it was about making sure we were better out of possession, and we didn't show the bravery that we showed recently in possession. All of a sudden we showed that in the second half and the game changed. Yeah, it was a positive. Obviously brought Brownie in to give us a little bit more impetus and effect up front, and at the top end of the pitch, and did it really well in the second half with that goal. So I'm really pleased for him. Yeah, we obviously looked really likely to score as the game went on. I think the start of the second half wasn't great. We nearly conceded a couple of times, but once we got the goal, we were on the front foot, and it was one of those days where we had a couple of chances from set pieces, from long throws, some good opportunities, but didn't create or didn't manage to sort of stick anything on the end of it and put it in the back of the net. So ultimately, obviously, didn't get the second.
John Messina remarkably even-tempered after the Swansea first half debacle, and then considerable turnaround in the second half. If it had been the other way round, we would have focused even more on the debacle of that 45 minutes. But because we turned it round, and we did turn it round, and we quite rightly won the second half 1-0. Could have been 1-1, I suppose. They should have scored thanks to that error by Dio, who on the whole fitted in pretty well. But he looked like what he was, which was a raw 22-year-old from Senegal, French-speaking, presumably. It is the language of Senegal, so possibly having language issues, just like Gus Caballero at Pompey. I don't know how Pompey deal with it, whether they bring in translators, interpreters, but that to one side. John Messina was furious, he said, after Blackburn. But if that's him furious, he should see one or two managers that we've had at Pompey being actually furious. He said he stayed calm, objective, perceptive, eloquent. And after the Swansea defeat, where he could have been even more furious, because that first half display was worse than either of the halves against Blackburn, but he wasn't. Again, he expressed his dissatisfaction, the unacceptability, and wonders how to turn it round, because it's not something that you can teach players not to do on a training ground, but he's going to be looking at strategies to do that. But a remarkably even-mannered, even-tempered, I should say, performance, if you can call it a performance, in the post-match interviews after that Swansea game, when he must have been red raw.
Since former Disney CEO Michael Eisner took the reins back in 2017, it's been quite a ride for Portsmouth. He's said to have bought the club for around £5.67 million, right after they won the League Two title and secured their promotion to League One. After 7 long seasons in the third tier, Pompey finally clinched the League One title under John Messina, marking their long-awaited return to the championship. Their first seasons back has been a fight to stay up, and with the end of the current campaign in sight, the team is hoping to steer clear of a relegation battle. Long-term, the goal is to push for a return to the Premier League, a height the club hasn't reached since 2010. Now, big changes are happening behind the scenes at Fratton Park. Portsmouth has confirmed a major shift in its ownership structure, with Eisner passing on a majority of his shares as part of his succession plan. In a statement on the club's website, it was revealed that Eisner has handed over 73.5% of his stake in equal 24.5% shares to his 3 sons, Breck, Eric, and Anders. Eisner will hold on to the remaining 26.5%, but crucially, he keeps 100% of the voting rights. This means that for the time being, he's still the one calling the shots on the club's direction. Whether this arrangement will change down the line remains to be seen, especially as the American owner recently turned 82. For now, according to EFL rules, he is still considered the only person with a significant interest in the club. Eisner has stressed that this move is part of a long-term plan and shouldn't have any immediate impact on the day-to-day running of the club at Fratton Park. He insists that his ownership was always meant to be a family project. From the moment I first began discussions about taking on the ownership of Portsmouth Football Club, I knew this needed to be a family affair, Eisner wrote on the club's website. I spoke about that with the PST and the fans, at the Guildhall and around Portsmouth.
The amazing Michael Eisner. He's 82 and he's still going strong. He still has a tremendous business brain. He has an eye for detail. He remembers what he said at the Guildhall years ago. Some of us can't quite remember what we said half an hour ago. So good on him. Now, what's he done that affects us? What changes have been made that affect us? Did you see that programme? I didn't. Starring that big, dangerous-looking Scottish actor, or he seems Scottish anyway, in which he played a kind of a Rupert Murdoch-type character. I think it was called Succession. And here's Michael Eisner talking about his succession. He's getting his affairs in order. He seems perfectly fit and healthy. And of course we hope that he is, and we wish him well. And we wish him many, many happy years ahead. However, he has arranged that he has 100% voting rights over what goes. In other words, he's the one who decides whether or not he writes out a cheque for several £1 for a player, or 2, or 3, please, which is what fans want. He's the one who gets to make that decision. And that's probably fair because he's the one who's earned the money by having a spectacularly good career, lucrative career. He's a very rich man. He owns, according to my understanding, the most expensive house in California, for goodness sake, with its own cable ride down to its own beach and with its own multi-story cinema. I mean, the boy's done good, and it's his money. And if anybody's going to spend it, it's him. However, he is preparing for the future by giving his 3 sons equal rights. It seems, we haven't had that confirmed, I'm guessing it's equal rights over 70-something% of the shares that Tornante have in Portsmouth Football Club. So it's clear that perhaps young Pompey fans will have to get used to, at some point in the future, the club being owned not by an Eisners, but by the Eisner brothers. And I'm old enough to be able to say that sounds like a Tamla Motown act.
The championship fixture between Portsmouth and Ipswich Town has been rearranged for a second time following 2 postponements at Fratton Park. The Tractor Boys will head down to the south coast on Tuesday the 14th of April, with kick-off set for 19:45 British summertime that evening. The initial match was postponed in early January due to a frozen pitch and then again in February because of heavy rain. Ipswich have now had 5 games postponed or abandoned this season, with a match against Blackburn called off for a waterlogged pitch, the 2 at Portsmouth postponed, and then fixtures against Southampton and Hull City because of FA Cup progression. The second Portsmouth postponement left fans frustrated, as well as Ipswich boss Kieran McKenna, who questioned the reasons behind the cancellation. The FA Cup one is what it is, McKenna told the East Anglian Daily Times. However, there's something that could be done differently for the championship clubs who progress in that cup. Because it is a big challenge now for Southampton, but also for the teams who are playing against them, including us, who already have a game to rearrange. The only rearrangement that still annoys me is the first Portsmouth one. We're going to have a lot of games, we're going to have tough games, but there are some brilliant games in there to look forward to. It should be a really exciting end to the season.
We might well have an exciting end to the season as well. A bit more of a nail-biter than theirs, of course. McKenna's one of these people who can't let something go, can he? He's clearly insinuating that we influenced the officials who decided that the frozen pitch, the first time an Ipswich game was postponed, and admittedly only hours before kick-off, so they were there. They'd probably travelled up the day before and overnighted in Portsmouth, so that all they got to do was go home. The fans, who were halfway round the M25 or whatever, towards Portsmouth, were quite rightly, obviously upset, and we wouldn't have liked it. But he needs to let it go. Just for the record, by the way, this rescheduled match, April the 14th, makes it a very difficult week, challenging week for Pompey, because the Saturday before, giving us only 72 hours recovery time, we're at Middlesbrough, which means an overnight and then a very long coach journey home. A long and cramping and all the various negatives that go with a long coach journey. And now, by the way, I have to say, we're only assuming that it's a coach journey. Some clubs do fly their players, but even that has an element of ardour about it. It's not a walk in the park. So we play Middlesbrough on the Saturday, then we play Ipswich on the Tuesday night, and then we've got Leicester the following Saturday. So 7 days, we've got Middlesbrough away, a crucial match with Ipswich at home, with them no doubt going flat out because the lure of the Premier League, of course, and us going flat out because of the fear of League One. And then, again, 72, whatever it is, hours recovery time, and we've got another 6-pointer against Leicester.